Steve Mignon, you're doing the Junkyard Crawl here at One Stop Towing in Brimfield, Massachusetts, with something pretty cool. Now, back in the 70s and the 80s, these things were all over the place. In fact, if you watch that TV show Ironsides, starring Raymond Burr from the late 60s, early 70s, you saw one of these Ford E-Series vans. Well, let's remember that Ford started the whole cab-forward van trend in 1961 with the Falcon. The forward control, driver sits over the axle, and of course by 1964 Dodge copied it with the A100, and 65 Chevrolet came out with the Chevy van. But again, it all started with Ford. Well, by 1968 Ford rewrote the rules again with this thing right here. This is the first of the American cab forward vans with an opening hood. You got to remember, the first generation 61 through 67 Econoline based on the Falcon was flat. There was no opening, nor was there a hood on the Chevy and Dodge versions. Well, the whole point about adding a little bit of nose length was two things. They moved the engine forward to get the doghouse out of the passenger compartment. Passenger seat could finally walk into the back rather than going around, because the doghouse for the engine used to be too big, and access to things like the brake master cylinder, the windshield washer fluid, and the radiator, and the transmission liquid. Those things were all previously done from inside or under the vehicle, a nuisance. So again, from 1968 through 74, Ford vans with hoods set the trend. Now, speaking of trend, 1971 brought the Chevy van, which we see finally got a nose right there. These arrived, I believe, in 71, and also Dodge. Also, we see here an opening hood. Again, Ford did it first in 68. So they say that there's nothing better than emulation, and Ford really set the trend. Again, 61, first time for a cab forward van, and in 68, the first time for the forward control, but with an opening hood. Now let's go inside, but before we do, 68 brought something new. The front suspension went from the buggy spring and leaf springs to the twin I-beam. This is an ad for a Ford van, but right there we can see that's a twin I-beam front suspension. And again, the Econoline pickup in 68 was more based on the pickup truck than it was the light-duty Falcon type platform. So in 68, the second generation Econolines grew up quite a bit. Again, twin I-beam front suspension. And inside, here's a look at how the engine is moved forward. And also, these 68 ups are the first Ford vans with optional V8 power. It's true, the 61 through 67s were all 6-cylinder powered. Kind of weird, but there it is right there in this 1970, a 302 two-barrel. Not a Boss 302, but still a 302 with plenty of power. Automatic tranny, this one here, the Ford Cruise-O-Matic 3-speed automatic transmission. But we can see here how the passenger seat over there, there's a gap between it and where the doghouse would be. The passenger side, you can actually walk into the rear of the van, because again, the doghouse is smaller on the second gen Econoline. So this is a well-preserved example of the Econoline. Now, 1975 brought something even weirder, or better, right over there. That's the third generation Econoline. You can see right there, the area in front of the windshield, the nose is much longer, and that was a total rebirth. In fact, that's the first Ford van with body-on-frame construction. These are unitized construction, but again, the 68 through 74, these were heavy-duty pieces, including Dana 60 rear axles on the 3/4 tonners. There's a Dana 60 back here, 16-inch wheels. Now this one's kind of weird. Look at this. It's a Club Wagon Custom 1, 2, 3. Now usually in the world of Fords, we have F1, F-150, F200, F250, or E350 in the case of this 3/4 tonner. Well, 1, 2, 3, what is that? It's a reference to the wheelbase, 123 inches, which is 18 inches longer than the 105-inch wheelbase on the standard E-Series Econoline van. Now, these would get a sliding side door, I believe in 1972, 2 years after this one was made. This one still has opening doors on the side and in the back. And here we see it, the original light green paint, almost swimming pool green. And the rubber floor mat still in place, very utilitarian, but long wearing stuff. The only downside here is, if you can see, it gets old, it gets dry, and it tears like that. It's kind of too bad. But again, a very pure example inside. And as a Club Wagon, this would have had seats in the rear 4 passengers to ride in. Now, something kind of cool on this one is the dealer that sold this originally right here, the sticker, Valley Motors, Ford Mercury, Ware, Massachusetts. I'm from West Brookfield, Massachusetts, and Ware, Mass is right next door. And I used to work for Jack Larson, who was the guy who operated Valley Motors in the mid-1970s, late 60s, early 70s. And it's kind of weird to see this thing close to home and yet so far from home. But again, this is a nice example of the second generation Ford Econoline or E-Series van when it kind of grew more into a truck and less light duty. V8 possibilities, 3/4 ton suspension, Dana 60 rear axles. And again, by moving the engine forward, this is the first American front van or front drive van, front seated van, front operation with an opening hood, something the rest of the industry copied instantly. But you saw it here first. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Magnanti YouTube channel. And remember, 1, 2, 3 is not a launch sequence. It's rather the wheelbase on the long wheelbase Ford van.